Hey, Christina, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, we really wanted to talk to you after the virtual beer fest that you threw on Saturday. Just because a lot of breweries are trying to do virtual events now. Some don't really know the right way to go about it, what'll work, what won't work, and the uniqueness of what you guys did was really cool, really interesting. I think it worked really well. So we wanted
Thank
to
you.
just talk a little bit about that and see what ideas this could prompt among breweries to sort of think of ways that they can still do community-minded events without having physical events during this COVID period. So I'm curious, how did the event really come to fruition?
Well, I mean, as both of you know, more and more physical beer events are being canceled. Um, Oktoberfest in Munich was just canceled. I think it was last week they announced it. So as we kept seeing more and more events being canceled, and we as a guild had to look at our events for the year, and we were planning a collaboration beer fest for June, and decided that that wasn't going to happen. We also have some educational sessions that we hold for our members. We had one planned in April with partnered with Oregon State University, and we had to cancel that due to the school being closed and COVID. So, just trying to get creative per se with how do we keep funds coming into the guild, how do we keep our brewers connected not only to each other but also to the community. And Tony and Tony's my co-executive director, we sit on a call weekly with the Brewers Association and state guilds from around the US. And so just bringing our minds together, the first one happened, I believe it was the second weekend in April in Iowa. And that was the first virtual beer fest that we saw happen. So Tony and I, that following week, we just put our heads together and decided, is it feasible? Would our brewers actually want to participate? Would our community want to participate? So we sent an email out on April 15th to our membership, just asking them if it was something that they would want to take part in. And we had really great response from our members, brewers from across the state, both large and small and medium, that were very excited to take part in it. And less than about 2 weeks later, we held it. So it was turned around really quickly.
Yeah, that's impressive. That was going to be my next question. How quickly did it come together? But that's impressive.
2 weeks, yeah. I'm used to planning, a year out.
Yeah, yeah.
So 2 weeks was impressive for us. But the pieces just fell together. Again, our membership was super responsive, and then the community was responsive as well. We opened up tickets just the week before, that Friday before the fest happened, and we're a little concerned about ticket sales at first, just because it was a slow crawl.
Yeah.
But after throwing enough events in Oregon and in the beer industry, I knew to hold out until at least like 2 days before, and that's usually when people make their final decision on what they're going to do. And yeah, it worked out. We saw ticket sales start to rise and ramp up, and had a total of about 500 people on both platforms.
Wow, that's great.
That is great.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah,
did
I was happy with it.
Yeah, yeah, no, really so.
Yeah, yeah. For something that's relatively new and not something that people are used to, 500 sounds like a great number. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, virtual life is interesting. There were things that were going to come up that we didn't know what exactly to plan for. I mean, I think most of us have spent the last 6 weeks living in Zoom or WebEx or any type of virtual platform. So we had, some anticipation of what could happen, but there were a couple of things that popped up during the fest that we worked through.
Yeah, great. How did you decide who the live speakers were and kind of who was live and who did the pre-recorded segments?
So we knew that we planned 4 hours. We were going to do a 6-hour event, and weren't really sure if 6 hours was going to be too long to keep people engaged. So we went with 4. And that email that I sent out to our membership on the 15th, I just asked, if I sent a link to a form online, and it was basically, are you interested? If so, which platform would you be more interested in? Meet the Brewer style on Zoom, or live Facebook live videos on our Facebook group. And it was about a 50-50 split with our membership on who preferred which platform, or it came down to time, if they could allot the time to be live, or we had quite a few that just wanted to do pre-recorded videos, whether it was brewery tours or, chatting with the owner, the brewmaster. So we had all of that content that came in over about 3 days. And then Tony and I went through there and kind of sorted out which topics we thought would be most interesting on either platform. Again, we wanted to make sure that we kept the attendees engaged. And we wanted, large and small brewers on both sides. And it worked out. We had, again, the positive, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Our brewers' response was so positive to it that we had way more content than we really knew what to do with. So a lot of it, because on Zoom, we allotted about 15 to 20 minutes per speaker for their presentation, and then wanted to give about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of each for questions from our attendees. So we knew that platform, we would be more limited on time than on the Facebook platform, which actually worked out because we were able to upload a ton of videos and have quite a bit of Facebook Live videos going on that platform at the same time.
Yeah, I thought that this setup was great, because when I saw the schedule, I wondered how you were going to use the two platforms. And it really was, in a sense, like you were at a real festival or conference where there was like one keynote that was happening, but then there were other sort of tangential things happening in the background that if that wasn't your cup of tea at the moment, you could go look at something else that was happening. So there really was a good amount of diverse content, and that was impressive. We've seen a couple other guilds do similar things, and the scale seems like they've been much smaller than what you guys did, just with the diversity of content.
Yeah, we're very lucky in the fact that we have quite a few owners, brewery owners and brewmasters that are well known in the community, not just here in Oregon, but across the country and some worldwide. So we wanted to ensure that we gave them the proper platform to present, and then really support our smaller brewers. We have about 300 breweries in the state of Oregon, and we wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted to participate could, and that they were given, an allotted time slot so that they could also reach out on their social media and say, hey, we're going to either be on Zoom or we're going to be on Facebook Live at 2:00. Be sure to jump on and check us out.
Yeah. What kind of feedback did you get either during the event or after it from people?
A lot of positive feedback. Actually, I think the only, and I won't even say negative, it was just constructive criticism, was I had changed the email that people received when they registered during the event so that they had the link to the Facebook page, and it didn't save. And I didn't realize until the event was over that people who had bought tickets during the event had to really search for the Facebook platform. It automatically sent you a registration link for the webinar for Zoom, but my edit didn't save, and I was so just engrossed in trying to manage the Zoom platform and work with Tony on managing the Facebook that I just didn't realize. But a ton of positive. The attendees, we had attendees from all over sharing their pictures on Facebook, which was great, from Texas, from Arizona, from Iowa. So it was great to see people outside of Oregon that it had reached past our borders.
Awesome.
I've got kind of a two-part question.
Okay.
So now that you've got this one under your belt, what were some of your biggest learnings, and I guess the the second part of that would be, is there anything you'd change if you did one of these types of events again?
Give myself more time to plan.
That seems fair.
um, yeah, we learned that people are really into it. They stayed connected to the platforms. I think at peak times, I remember seeing on Zoom, we had about 270 people on at one time, and
Nice.
then roughly about 200 to 250 on the Facebook platform. And there were multiple people that were on both, like they had dual screens open so that they could watch both. So just giving ourselves more time to plan is definitely my suggestion to myself. There's some specialty content that we would like to add for next time. We've already started the conversation on planning for another event. We had a couple of our brewers, so Gigantic Brewing in Portland and Little Beast Brewing in Portland, they both offered these really cool pairing packages that you could pick up prior to the event. And then during their Facebook live feed, they actually walked people through those packages. So it included local food vendors from Portland and then their beers. So looking at future events, I really want to offer something more of that, where we're actually getting the beer into the hands of more people. So those live tastings can happen. And that the details on that, we're going to have to spend some time on trying to coordinate, how folks pick the beer up. Will it be regional? So will there be, maybe Portland beer boxes, Hood River, Central Oregon, the Valley. I find that those two Facebook live feeds were really engaging, and they had quite a few people who actually picked those pairing boxes up prior to the event. What else? We will probably extend the length. I just found that if we could have added more to the Zoom platform, I would have been happy. Maybe like two more speakers. Also giving Tony and I time to thank our sponsors more. That was something we did a big shout out at the beginning and a shout out at the end on Zoom. And then we also allowed them to post basically like commercials on our Facebook feed. So giving ourselves time for that. We were just back-to-back speakers on Zoom. And so it was, as soon as one was done, we were transferring right into the next. Other than that, I think it went really well. I felt the communication went well. We would probably open ticket sales up sooner and post the schedule sooner. We were coming down to the wire when we finalized the schedule for both platforms. And so I'd like to, at our next event, have that set and ready to post when tickets go on sale.
Totally. That makes sense. Yeah. And this one was great. Very good for craft beer enthusiasts, like all of us here and everyone who was there, very deep into beer. But I kind of think there's opportunity for events that maybe have different segment appeal, like art or music. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Giving ourselves more time to plan will allow us to be able to do that. We had one of our brewers, Sonia Marie Lycum from Lycum Brewing, who did a Bob Ross style painting session during her Facebook live feed. And then we had Worthy Brewing here. They, on the side, sponsor music, do Facebook live feeds. They've been doing it for like the last 4 weeks. So we partnered with them, and they had a local musician, Eric Ledbetter, that did a session from 2 to 3 on Facebook. So I would love to be able to add more of that. So you do, like you said, you get outside of the craft beer lover and engage more people. For sure is something we want to add to that.
So cool. You probably covered this already, but any other like general advice that you'd give to breweries considering events like this, or organizations looking to do, brewery facing events? That's timing. Timing is obviously critical.
The planning. Yeah, the planning piece is important. The communication is key, whether it's to your brewery members, the folks that you're planning on having present. Knowing your platforms. So,
Yeah.
Tony and I, we've spent a lot of time on Zoom, just all the meetings, constant meetings in the last 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So just giving yourself, if you're not familiar with a certain platform, making sure that you give yourself time to just know the ins and outs, whether it's, the chat rooms or the question, because like on Zoom, we have a chat function and then there's a Q&A function. So making sure you communicate which function you're going to use for taking questions for your speakers.
Yep.
Making sure that you have enough bandwidth internet-wise to be able to stream, especially the Zoom platform when you have that many people on it. You have 300 people at one time, just ensuring that your bandwidth is there so that you don't have any technical issues. I had one, so it was a learning lesson for me.
Sure.
And then sponsors. I mean, that was something that really helped us to be able to financially do this. Granted, the ROI on these type of events is, 100 times greater than what you're going to have on a physical event because your overhead is minimal.
Right.
But sponsors are great because it's cash coming in to help with whatever expenses you do have. And then you give them the opportunity to, whether it's connecting with your brewery membership or connecting via, the Facebook platform that we used. So our benefits to our sponsors included, depending on their level of sponsorship, it was, you could have a 15-second video that posted, you could do a 30-second or as much as 2 30s or 1 60-second video. So half of our sponsors took advantage of that and,
Great.
Posted their commercials. Some of them, people are looking to support each other right now. And we found that our associate members some of them have the funding to be able to support rather than our brewery members who are struggling right now.
Right. It's great. That's great stuff.
Thank you.
To kind of move on a little bit past the Stay Home Drink Beer Festival, since we have you, we thought it'd be a great time to ask a few questions about just guild operations and what breweries, whatever state they're in, could be expecting from their partners at the guild. So one of the things we saw early on when restaurants were forced to close, the Oregon Liquor Control Commission was very quick to adapt and allow breweries to do self-delivery to consumers. Did the guild have to play a part in that in lobbying at all, or was that completely them? Okay.
No, so in Oregon, the licensing was actually there, which we discovered after we started having those conversations with OLCC. But it was, as soon as the stay home order came through, actually on, I think it was March 13th was when they closed schools. That was the last day of schools here in Oregon. So the work started then. Tony and I, we were very lucky that our guild has a lobbyist. And Jonathan Manton, he is in Salem. He has boots on the ground. He has those connections to all of the state legislators, which was huge. That's a big benefit for us here. But those conversations, they started immediately. So that the outreach to OLCC, the outreach to Governor Brown's office, the outreach to all of our state legislators in Salem. And we discovered quickly that OLCC had the licensing capability. It was there. Most people weren't aware. What they did for us is we helped to convince them to minimize the turnaround. So after those conversations happened, applications were being approved same day, which was huge for our members to be able to do to go and home delivery.
Totally. The work that you guys did working with them was amazing, because with clients in other states, it has definitely not been as smooth with some of the other liquor control boards in other states.
Yeah, each state, it's amazing to me. Like I said, Tony and I, we have constant communication with other guilds, and just the immense differences in liquor laws from state to state it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So aside from the virtual beer fest, what other things have you as a guild done to help member breweries during this COVID period?
Well, communication has been key. We opened up our membership to everybody. So we, sent communication out to let all breweries know that we were a resource for if they had questions, if they needed support in any way that we could help. We created a COVID-19 resource page on our website. And so there's all types of information that's listed there, whether it's rules that came out from Governor Brown, OLCC. We have links to the Brewers Association page, FDA, not FDA, FDA, the OLCC. We have the Oregon Department of Ag, because most of our breweries are under Department of Ag, Oregon Health Authority. So we had just constant communication with all of those organizations. We work with the BA hand in hand. We did an economic impact survey here within the state and sent that information to the BA, and the BA as well did their own survey. And all of that information went to Washington, D.C., so that our Congress is aware that breweries are severely affected during this. We worked immediately to ensure that breweries were considered essential businesses in the state of Oregon, so that they could maintain brewing, even if they're, when the restaurants were closed at first, just ensuring that they could still make product. We're on weekly calls with the governor's office. We're on weekly calls with there's a coalition that we sit on with Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association, Melitus Beverage, the Oregon Beer and Wine Distributors Association, members from Anheuser-Busch, CBA, Deschutes Brewery, Gary Fish, and Michael Lalandra on those calls. So just trying to keep those lines of communication open, and ensuring that we're fighting the good fight for them. Right now, we're trying to work on excise tax relief. So at the federal level, the BA is our strong suit in DC. And then here in Oregon, we're working with our state legislators to try to find ways to soften the blow to not just craft brewers, but cideries, distillers, things like that. Just finding ways to keep money in the pockets of the brewers, trying to work on rent and mortgage moratoriums here in Oregon, funding via grants instead of loans. Let's see, what else are we working on? Right now, it's the reopening framework. So the last 2 weeks that's what we've been working with Governor Brown's office and that coalition of different organizations, just trying to ensure that we all have a voice in how reopening works, and how it's phased out.
Would that include safety guidelines and things along those lines as well?
Safety guidelines. We had to fight to have tap rooms included with brew pubs, and many states are seeing this where the governor's office and legislators are seeing tap rooms more as bars instead of, in relation to brew pubs. So just trying to fight to have our tap rooms open at the same time that the brew pubs do, as long as they can meet the standards, right? The safety guidelines to keep, their employees and their customers safe.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's kind of everything for Guild and Brewfest, but I know Scott has a couple questions on beer trends to throw at you.
Yeah, always look into the future, especially now, just a couple of, because all Kevin and I do is muse about some of these things, right, and speculate, and I'm sure all of us are in a similar boat. But broadly speaking, what are some of the trends that you see coming over the next couple of years?
It's interesting. Here in Oregon, you're seeing a lot more of the breweries brewing lagers, I think, because they have the time to do it. So I'm a lager lover. Like, how
many brewers want this exact answer you're about to give, right? How many brewers are like, the time of the lager is finally here?
I would hope the time of the lager is finally here, but I don't know. Tony and I, we talk about it all the time, and we question whether hazy beers are going to stick around. And the hazy IPAs are still staying strong, so I don't see those going away anytime soon. Like I said, I see lagers making a strong, putting their foot in the door and saying, hey, we're here. And hopefully when things are safe again, I think you're going to see a lot of collaborations happening. I think that, brewers are used to being able to brew with each other. We see that a lot in Oregon, Colorado. So I think that the need to be with each other, bring back that community aspect. I see more and more collaborations happening.
Cool. My last question, I think our collective last question for you. So necessity is the mother of invention, right? You know that because you just created a virtual beer tour, which is amazing. There's been a lot of innovation, a lot of COVID-related adaptations. What are some that you think might last when we all return to whatever normal we're going to be facing in the next, let's call it 4 to 6 months to be optimistic?
Yeah, I guess it is the new normal. We actually were talking about this yesterday. What we might see stick, whether are people going to want to come to tap rooms is the big question for us right now. Especially when the doors do open, are people going to feel comfortable? Are they going to be running towards the door, or are they going to be hesitant? So, is the 6 feet mark going to stick around for the next 4 to 6 months? Potentially. The to-go and delivery beer is something that Tony and I are talking about. Do we fight to keep that going for the breweries once they're allowed to reopen? Because for many of them, that's the only income they have coming in right now, and it's what's keeping them alive. And does that lead to talk of looking at franchise law and working with our distributors on how do we make it easier for everybody? I don't know what the new normal is going to look like. We're putting together a survey that we're planning on sending out via our membership to like their members or their email, their community, to see what people's response will be. There was a recent one that went out, I believe it was on the East Coast, that just asking people, when the doors do open, how comfortable are you going to be? Are you is it going to be, you're going to go back to your, 1 to 3 times a week at your local pub, or is it once a week at your local pub? I don't know.
No one does.
No, but we're here, you have to be adaptable. Like
right.
you said, we're going to take it one day at a time. And, Tony and I are here to support our membership and actually all Oregon beer in whatever manner we can, and to help them kind of navigate through the waters as well. So it's going to be learning on a daily basis for, I think, at least the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
And congratulations again on a great event.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. Thanks for attending.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
It was a lot of fun, and really interesting to hear some of the different brewers talk. And it ended on a high note. Was it Paul from Great Notion?
Yeah.
he was, as my father-in-law likes to say, feeling no pain.
Yeah. He's a great character, even without alcohol. But yeah, he definitely, I was watching the chat room during his conversation, and people were really interested in just his personality. And Tony's from East Coast. He's a Pennsylvania boy, so he was laughing in the background as well. So and then we had the happy hour at the end, where we had the panelists come back and just relax and have a beer. And we wanted to end on a high note, on a, hey, this is community and we're going to get through this.
It did that. It was really successful all around. So again, congratulations. And I think Scott and I are both looking forward to the next one.
Totally.
Absolutely. We will We will let you know as soon as we have it planned out.
All right. Well, thanks, Christina. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.